Okay, with all of that said, it's great to see everyone this week. It's always great to see everybody. We can delve in. We're in the middle of our Megillot section of our time together. We've done Song of Songs. Now we're up to Ruth. Ruth is our second Megillah, our second scroll. Um, it should be a little familiar, hopefully, again, because we did this about a few months ago with Shavuot. Seems like forever ago, to be honest. To be fair, Shavuot was, I think, May, and that seems like a lifetime ago. To today, but it's a story that we traditionally read during Shavuot for a reason I'll explain in just a moment. The Book of Ruth is just a fantastic multi-layered tale. It's one of those, onion books I call them in the Torah, where you can keep peeling back those layers and always finding more and more interesting things, to study with Ruth. We're going to focus on one particular aspect today that I'll get to in a minute, but first a little bit of a backstory. So, what is the Book of Ruth? What is it about? Can someone tell me a little synopsis of the Book of
Well, that
Ruth?
she made a decision
Hmm.
to go with her, to follow her mother-in-law.
That's right. Yeah, she makes
Naomi.
the decision to follow her
She,
mother-in-law,
and her
Naomi.
sister didn't do that.
Yes, her sisters go the other way. Her sister goes the other way. That's right. So, yeah, so it's that's sort of the beginning of the story, right? Is that she makes this decision to stay with her mother-in-law. Her husband has passed away, and she can return back to her homeland. Ruth is a Moabite, so she can return back to Moab. Um, but she instead decides to stay with Naomi, her mother-in-law, which was unusual at that time, and also, a surprise because there was no real benefit for Ruth to stay with Naomi, because as a widow, it would be better for her to go somewhere else and try to find perhaps another companion. But that's not what she decided to do. She decided to stick with Naomi. And so that's the first sort of chapter, is setting up that scene of them being together, sort of Thelma and Louising their way through the Bible. So that's very good. So that's their story. But that's just chapter one of Ruth, as I always like to say. That's the beginning. But in the second chapter, you have more. You have Ruth then forming a relationship with Boaz. Boaz being somebody who owns a plot of land and just so happens to be a distant relative of Naomi. And so that is a possible shidduch for Ruth, to be with a nice man, a good catch. True. Okay, and so we can see their love blossom throughout this very short, I should mention, book of the Bible. It's only 4 chapters. Chapter 3 is the seduction scene. We just finished Song of Songs, all about that. So we have a seduction scene in chapter 3 and a promise of marriage. And then chapter 4, we have the culmination of the story. We have a happy ending, Mazel Tov all around. The birth of a baby, with Naomi's grandson, and then who winds up being the ancestor of King David. And so you go all the way back in the Bible. So this is almost like, as I can say, King David's origin story. It's Peter Parker getting bit by the spider. Okay, that's how he becomes Spider-Man. This is how King David, how we get King David, is through this story. It's his origin story. It is unique, perhaps, in the Bible for really depicting a loving relationship between 2 women, because usually in the Bible, a little punchy. Okay, Sarah and Hagar, not great. Rachel and Leah, not great. And so there aren't that many examples, to be fair. But to have a relationship between 2 women that are happy with each other, it's nice to have it in the Book of Ruth. I'll put it that way. The major theme in this book that I want to focus on today is the theme of chesed. And chesed in Hebrew means kindness, it means loyalty and commitment, that goes far beyond the bounds of law and obligation, right? You can even translate this. It's not usually our word. You usually hear this word more in another faith tradition, but you can really translate chesed as grace in a way, and that it is an act of, again, that love and kindness that is not necessarily, or actually probably is, by definition, not earned. It isn't warranted. You're doing something good, something kind, though the person does not deserve it, so to speak. It's above and beyond what might be expected. And so we see this in all the different relationships in the story. Ruth and Naomi. Certainly, there's a lot of chesed in that relationship because Ruth doesn't have to be there. Ruth can go somewhere else. Naomi and Ruth. Naomi shows Ruth a lot of chesed as well during the story. Boaz, the male protagonist, the gentleman lead in the story, shows chesed both to Ruth and to Naomi. And even though God is not a primary actor in the story, God is invoked several times, and God is sort of perhaps working in the background a bit, with the idea that maybe God is also trying to show an act of chesed, right, by directing everyone to where they need to be, sort of like putting all the pieces on the chessboard in their right place. And so it's a really beautiful idea throughout this story that we can do good, we can do kindness for people, and that it's a mitzvah, so to go above and beyond in kindness. So we're going to focus on that idea a little bit today in a little more detail. In terms of when this book was written, no idea really when it was written. And we have some ideas from different times. No author is given. We don't know who wrote the book. But depending on how one reads the story, you get different dates. 950 BCE all the way back when is probably the earliest you can date it. 700 BCE might be a little bit better, a little bit later. If you're going to think about this perhaps as a homage to King David, maybe the later date makes sense. I mean, the earlier, I should say, date makes sense. Others say that perhaps this book was written at the time of the Babylonian exile or even the Persian restoration, 586 BCE to 536 BCE, in that time period as well. Not sure, when it's written. We don't have a lot of clues here as to when this book was actually written. We know that the author, as I like to say, had a ball of fun writing this book. The author just, uses wordplay, uses rhetoric, uses some inside jokes, and just really wove and crafted together in 4 chapters a really amazing piece of literature that can be read, I would say, at least 5 different ways. And so I think for that reason, to me, it's a very powerful and very interesting book. Because King David was supposed to have died on Shavuot, that's one of the reasons why we read this book on Shavuot. Also, a little bit, as we'll see, of barley harvesting. Also, a nice tie to the agricultural time of Shavuot, the time of the barley harvest. And if we want to say, and I'm going to be a little bit, I don't know the right word, is a little bit of an antagonist perhaps to poor Ruth. If we are going to say she is a convert to Judaism, Shavuot is the time of receiving the Torah. And so it sort of makes sense to put the story during Shavuot when we talk about the receiving of Torah, if Ruth is indeed a convert, which I have my suspicions on. But if we want to view her through that lens, it makes sense, right? That she that would read the story during Shavuot. With all of that said, now with the introduction done, let's get to the good stuff. Let's read and have a grand old time. I'm going to
Can I ask you a question first?
Please do.
Okay. The question is, when do we ever at any time sing the song of Naomi and Ruth?
Say again?
You know what I'm talking about? Actually, it was one of the songs we had sung at our wedding where it said something like, your home will be my home.
Oh, yeah. I don't know the song, but I know the verse you're referring to.
Okay, but there's a song about it because it was one of our songs at our wedding, and I was just wondering about it.
Did Taylor Swift sing it?
No.
I don't know what it is. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, I was just wondering.
No, let me do a little poking around on that one. I don't know the song, but I have no doubt that it's there because it's a very powerful part of the story, and so I'm sure there's been more than one nice piece of Jewish music composed to capture that moment because it is very powerful, and so I'll check it out.
It was so long ago, it probably needs to be dusted off.
I'm sure
I was gonna say Taylor Swift wasn't born when they got married.
Okay.
Where is Moab?
Moab is Jordan.
Moab is what would be considered Jordan.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
No, sure, of course. Actually, Marilyn, you want to start reading? Marilyn Warner?
Sure.
Yeah, in the days.
In the days when the chieftains ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a man from Bethlehem in Judah, with his wife and 2 sons, went to reside in the country of Moab. The man's name was Elimelech. His wife's name was, now you said Naomi.
Naomi.
Okay, and his 2 sons were named Malach and Chilion, Euphrates of Bethlehem and Judah. They came to the country of Moab and remained there. Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. They married Moabite women, one named Orpha, that should be Oprah, and the other Ruth, and they lived there about 10 years. Then those 2, Malchon and Chilion, also died. So the woman was left without her 2 sons and without her husband.
So you just start off depressing right off the bat, right? Okay, and so we're going to move in this story. Another theme, I mentioned chesed, which we're going to focus on a little bit more today, but we also have this theme of emptiness to fulfillment, right? Of things being lousy and unpleasant and sort of sorrowful to great joy. And so we're going to begin with lack. We're going to begin with there being not much happiness or joy to be found. So the chieftains, when they ruled, whenever that was, because again, we don't really have a dating here. We're going to make the assumption that this was probably meant to be the time of the judges, right? The time after Joshua, but before the monarchy. So somewhere in that era is where we're probably going to date when this text is talking about, the time period they're talking about. There was a famine in the land, and the man of Bethlehem in Judah and his 2 sons, they slip out to Moab. Right away, the author is messing with you. Just so you know, that first sentence, it's already busting your chops. Okay, there's a famine. Where is there a famine?
In the land.
In where? In the land of?
Moab.
Bethlehem, right? So Bethlehem has no food. And that's funny because Bethlehem is Beit Lechem. It is the house of bread.
Oh, that's right.
And so Hamotzi Lechem, brings forth bread from the earth, and Beit, so even in the house of bread, there's no food. What a bummer. The food source is scarce when there's no food in Bethlehem. Fine, so his wife and his kids, they schlep. Elimelech, and they got Naomi and 2 sons, Machlon and Chilion. Once again, the author's having some fun with you. Machlon, I believe, means cessation, and Chilion means disease. And so just from those names, cessation and disease, one can guess they aren't going to last very long in the story. The author's giving you a little bit of foreshadowing. Don't get attached to Machlon and Chilion. They ain't going to be around too much longer. And sure enough, and a few sentences later, they're dead. So we have them schlepping to Jordan, to Moab. Elimelech dies. Then her 2 sons. They marry these Moabite women, Orpah and Ruth. And they lived about 10 years. So not bad. They have a little time together. But then, of course, they go. Machlon and Chilion exit stage right. and the two women, so the women were left without their sons and without her husband. Bummer. Okay, but again, the author's sort of setting you up, for these characters not to be there very long. Okay, so now the stage is set. The men are out of the way, so to speak, in the story, and now we get to that first dilemma, that first problem that we have is what to do next, because back in this time, obviously it was a little bit of a different society. The women weren't necessarily going to go make a living for themselves, right? They need to be attached. They need to be married to somebody else. Maybe inherit some land that way, come into some land, some business that way, or else they might be destitute. If you read the Bible, if you read especially the works of the prophets, but it's certainly there in the 5 books in the Torah itself, widows and orphans, right? Like those are the ones who are usually the most in need of care, because they're the ones who are usually destitute if they don't have family to support and provide for them. So in this case, we have not 1, not 2, but 3 widows here. And what's going to happen next, Sharon? You'll let us know. What do we have coming up?
Okay. She started out with her daughters-in-law to return from the country of Moab, for in the country of Moab she had heard that the Eternal had taken note of the people and given them food. Accompanied by her 2 daughters-in-law, she left the place where she had been living, and they set out on the road back to the land of Judah. But Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Turn back, each of you, to her mother's house. May the Eternal deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. May the Eternal grant that each of you find security in the house of a husband." And she kissed them farewell. They broke into weeping and said to her, "No, we will return with you to your people."
Okay, very nice. So very sweet in this moment. So, Naomi realizes, hey, there might be a little bit of food going on back home. So let's take our stuff and begin to schlep back to where we need to be. So the 2 daughters-in-law want to schlep with her. Sure, let's all go together on the road again, and they're going to go back to Judah. But Naomi says to her daughters-in-law, "What are you doing? It's all well and good you want to be with me, but you know what? You probably should go back home. Go back to your actual mother's house. I'm your mother-in-law, but go back to your mother's house. And maybe when you're back there, maybe you'll find a husband. Maybe you'll be able to start fresh. I'm just baggage at this point for you. Go back home. May God deal kindly with you. You seem to be, you're nice girls. We have a nice relationship, but it's time to go. It's time to go our separate ways." And in this moment, both of them don't want to leave, right? They grab her, they hug her, they kiss her. It's a nice moment. No, let us stay with you. It's a nice thought. It's a nice idea. But Naomi has other ideas. Renee, you want to pick up over here?
Yeah. Yeah. But Naomi replied, "Turn back, my daughters. Why should you go with me? Have I any more sons in my body who might be husbands for you? Turn back, my daughters, for I am too old to be married. Even if I thought there was hope for me, even if I were married tonight and also bore sons, should you wait for them to grow up? Should you, on their account, debar yourselves from marriage? Oh no, my daughters, my lot is far more bitter than yours, for the hand of the Eternal has struck out against me."
Okay, thank you.
Rabbi,
Yep.
is Moab very close to Bethlehem?
It's a little bit of a schlep. You gotta walk. I don't know how I'm on foot what it's like, but it's certainly it's not a short walk to get there, because Bethlehem is in the West Bank. It's in that area, and Moab is Jordan. So if you had a car, you can do it pretty quickly, but they didn't have one at that time. And I don't think El Al flies from Bethlehem to Jordan, so I don't know. I think those days are over. So I don't know how long it would take on foot. It would take a while. And so you have here Naomi saying, look, I can't, I have nothing more to give you. It's all well and good. We want to hang together. That's great. But I can't give you any more husbands. I'm too old, not getting married again, most likely. And even if I did and had kids tomorrow, you're going to wait, for them to grow up, to be of marriageable age. What sense does that make? You're going to be here forever with me before that happened. So no, go home and let's do the rational thing. It's sweet, right? I mean, like they're sort of acting out of emotion, right? They want to sort of be together. It's a really nice idea, but Naomi's being practical, saying, you know what, this is not going to work this way. So let's not drag this out any longer. Okay, Bob, you want to pick up here actually?
They broke out in weeping again, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law farewell. But Ruth clung to her. So she said, see, your sister-in-law has returned to the people and her gods. Go follow your sister-in-law.
Okay, so Orpah gets the message. Orpah says goodbye. In Hebrew, Orpah means the back of the neck. And so she turns around to go home. Okay, so that's, again, giving you a little insight into the Hebrew. So Orpah turns and she leaves to go home. But Ruth means friendship. Ruth stays with Naomi. She doesn't leave. And even though Naomi's going to tell her, hey, get going, follow your sister-in-law, Ruth gives the famous speech. Bob, you want to read the speech?
But Ruth replied, do not urge me to leave you, to turn back and not follow you. For wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you lodge, I will lodge. And your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. Thus and more may the Eternal do to me, if anything but death parts me from you.
Okay, so that's that famous speech. That's what this book is most known for. Again, somewhat ironically in a way, because that really is, we're still in the first chapter. There's a lot more to this story than this passage, but it is sort of the iconic part of the story. It's this moment of sheer love and commitment and loyalty, saying it doesn't matter that it's not the rational decision. It doesn't matter that it's not practical, that I'm not going to derive any benefit necessarily from staying with you. That doesn't matter. We're going to be together. We're going to sort of remain on the road together because we're family. Excuse me. So stop telling me to get, stop telling me to go away because I'm going to go wherever you go, wherever you stay, I'm going to stay. And then here comes this very interesting line here, which we're going to interpret as ever want to interpret. Your people shall be my people and your God, my God. The question is, does that constitute a conversion to Judaism or not? Or is it just more like, I'm going to stick around and see how this plays out. And whatever you need me to do, I'm going to do. Traditionally speaking, it is viewed as a moment of conversion. That's why you have a lot of converts whose Hebrew name is Ruth, because Ruth is considered to be that first, or if not the first, at least the most famous convert to Judaism. It's a confirmation. It's a conversion by acclamation, by affirmation, in a way. She didn't have to study Torah for a year. No mikvah, no Beit Din. Didn't need it back then. Okay.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
In things that I read probably about 10 years ago, it said in those days, there really wasn't such a thing as a formal conversion. Yeah. Oftentimes people would move someplace and just join in what people did there, and that was accepted as a conversion. If they started following the religious beliefs there, then they considered them converts. A formal conversion didn't come around until much later.
Yeah, it's a much later rabbinic innovation, that gets further delineated through not only the Talmud, but frankly for the past 1,500 years, in terms of what conversion looks like. And so that's exactly right. That at this time period, it was really just a statement, declaration of faith. And the question, is does this statement, count, so to speak, as a conversion statement, and I think one can read it on its face and say yes, it counts as a statement of conversion. I think that's how most people would read it. I have my questions, but I think that's how most people would read it, as a statement of conversion.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
what's the Hebrew name for Ruth? How would you translate that?
Root. It's about the H. So root.
The root?
Yeah, root. Yeah. Yeah. And so, and that becomes the basis of the Hebrew word for friendship, for companionship. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's a beautiful speech, a beautiful passage, and there's it's no wonder, how this statement became so popular, because is there a sweeter statement in a way in the entire Bible? Like one would be hard pressed to find one. This is such a beautiful, statement of love, of loyalty, of commitment, of togetherness, and yes, of chesed, right, of kindness, because she wants to. I think one can read into it, that at least I would like to read into it, that she understands that Naomi is going to be better off with Ruth still being at her side. That Ruth could use a little bit of the help and the support. It might not be in Ruth's best interest, but it's in Naomi's best interest for Ruth to be with her. And so it can also be read as a moment of self-sacrifice as well. That she wants to stay with her mother-in-law. It really is a lovely passage. Okay, so now that we have gotten through wherever you go, I will go. We got to get to the rest of the book. Okay. Gary, you want to pick up there when Naomi saw?
Okay. When Naomi saw how determined she was to go with her, she ceased to argue with her, and the two went on until they reached Bethlehem. When they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole city buzzed with excitement over them. The women said, "Can this be Naomi?" "Do not call me Naomi," she replied. "Call me Mara, for Shaddai has made my lot very bitter. I went away full, and the Eternal has brought me back empty. How can you call me Naomi when the Eternal has dealt harshly with me, when Shaddai has brought this misfortune upon me?" Thus Naomi returned from the country of Moab. She returned with her daughter-in-law Ruth, the Moabite. They arrived in Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest.
Okay, yay, barley. Okay, so Naomi and Ruth schlepped their way back to Bethlehem, back to the house of bread. And there's excitement. Yay, Naomi's back. Good times. Noodle salad and margaritas for everybody. Naomi is back. It's going to be a good time. So Naomi, though, is less than keen. She's had a rough go. And so she's going to say, no, don't call me Naomi, because Naomi comes from the Hebrew word na'im. It means pleasantness. It means sweetness, right? Hine matov umanayim, right? Naomi, Naim. How good it is, how pleasant when brothers and sisters dwell together. Same root, right? And so Naomi means pleasant and sweet and good. Don't call me Naomi anymore. That's not my name. It's still her name. But instead call me Mara. Call me bitterness, because that's what Mara means. On Passover, what's on our Seder plate? Maror, that's right, Bob, maror, right? The bitter herb, right? And so call me bitterness, because my life has been very bitter. So it's a little bit of, she doesn't really mean for everyone to call her Mara, but, but that's like her mood right now. It's how she's feeling. And, you know, she went away full, right? She went when she left. She had a husband. She had two sons. She had two daughters-in-law, and she has left full, and now she's brought back empty. Still has Ruth, but yeah, but came back empty, right? And then she has all this misfortune, all this unpleasantness, and so she's pretty upset. But she did come back to Bethlehem, and it's just that time to harvest that barley, okay? And so that's where we end, actually, for this chapter, is that it's the beginning of the barley harvest. That first chapter was all about the coming together, or better said, the staying together of Ruth and Naomi. You know, Ruth's, words of affirmation and of togetherness for her mother-in-law, and them coming back home to Bethlehem.
That
Now,
should be very close to Sukkot, because Sukkot is the harvest festival.
so that's good, Bob. So so Passover, Sukkot, and Shavuot are all harvest festivals.
Okay.
And so for this one, it's barley. For Shavuot, I think it's wheat. I don't remember. I'd have to look up my gleaning. The agricultural side to these festivals are not my strong suit, to be honest. I have not farmed in a while. But you are exactly right, that these are harvest festivals. And so this barley, as we count the Omer, so to speak, from Passover to Shavuot, we're counting that barley harvest.
What is Shaddai?
Oh, Shaddai is one of the names of God. Shaddai is an early name of God. The origin of it probably comes from a place name. That Shaddai might have been a town, might have been a village. And then El Shaddai was the god of Shaddai, the god of that village. And it was later incorporated into the Israelite deity. So that name sort of carried over. Now, when you have a mezuzah, the mezuzah often has a shin on it, on the mezuzah, the Hebrew letter shin. And that Hebrew letter shin stands for Shaddai. It stands for that name of God, because here you see Shaddai. You have to imagine the Hebrew here. So Shaddai, we have to imagine it. Give me 1 second. Yes, I know. So Shaddai, Shin, Dalid, Yud. That's so tiny. Okay. So you see Shaddai there?
Yes.
And so that's Shaddai. So Shaddai stands for Shomer Delatot Yisrael, according to this tradition. And Shomer means guardian. Delatot means doors. And Yud, for Israel. So Shaddai, according to this
Guardian of the
Midrash,
doors of Israel.
stands for the guardian of the doors of Israel, which is why you have it on the mezuzah, as opposed to other names of God.
Thank you so much for that.
Oh, you're welcome. So that's our first chapter. Now, we would be remiss, I say, if we didn't note a piece from Deuteronomy that lets us know no Ammonite or Moabite shall be admitted to the congregation of the Eternal. None of their descendants, even into the 10th generation, shall ever be admitted into the congregation of Israel, because they did not meet you with food or water on your journey after you left Egypt, and because they hired Balaam, son of Beor, from Pethor of Aram Naharaim, to curse you. Okay, so Deuteronomy tells us Moabites are out. We don't like Moabites. Mean to us, okay? We hold a grudge pretty well from the Torah all the way to today, according to this tradition, right? Is that you can't have them. You can't have these Ammonites and Moabites. And Ruth is very famously a Moabite, right? And so even if she wanted to convert and sort of be part of the system, so to speak, be part of the Israelite religion, she has a rough bar here, sort of a door sort of blocking her way, about these Ammonites and Moabites not being admitted into the congregation. Now, that's going to be a little bit of an aside for now, because frankly, Deuteronomy written 622 or so, a little earlier, probably BCE, Ruth could have predated, this passage, and or the author could go, okay, that's what Deuteronomy has to say. I like my way better. Yeah, maybe the author's making a different point, perhaps by including Ruth the Moabite as being a convert to show that everyone can come into the fold if they desire to, if they believe what we want to, if they believe what we believe, if they affirm what we affirm, then why should we deny anyone the right to be part of our community? Interesting food for thought. A little bit of an aside, but interesting food for thought, I think, anyway.
Was David beyond the 10th generation?
Indeed. That leads to the whole discussion. Yes, is that it is a very pointed choice, and the author is trying to maybe say a few different things beyond what we've talked about so far. Because it's going to be a lot of fun here with genealogy. Okay, Linda Bilo, you want to pick up over here now, Naomi?
Now Naomi had a kinsman on her husband's side, a man of substance of the family of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, I would like to go to the fields and glean among the ears of grain behind someone who may show me kindness. Yes, daughter, go, she replied, and off she went. She came home and gleaned in the field behind the reapers, and as luck would have it, it was the piece of land belonging to Boaz, who was Elimelech's family.
One of my favorite passages in the entire story you just read, Linda. So thank you for that. I love it because the whole first chapter set up the idea that Naomi's got nothing to offer Ruth anymore. No more sons. There's no family, there's no relatives. They're going to come to help out Ruth. But all of a sudden, chapter 2, first sentence, hey, we got a dude. We got Boaz. Here he comes to save the day, to help our story. A little help from Boaz out of nowhere. So then, what? And so Ruth, says to Naomi, hey, I'm going to go work for a living, Naomi might be a little bit long in the tooth. She's not going to be out there working in the fields, in the same way. So Ruth's going to go. She's going to work. She's going to glean some barley. And so Naomi says, sure, go and do. And as luck would have it, wouldn't you know, my stars, it was the exact field of Boaz. Okay, so that's setting us up for the meet cute. Okay, it's setting us up for them to have a nice introduction to each other as she is gleaning in the fields. Okay, so, and then of course, even though Boaz wasn't there at the moment, now Boaz is back and we can continue on in our journey. Debbie, you want to pick up here?
Okay. Presently Boaz arrived from Bethlehem. He greeted the reapers, the Eternal be with you. And they responded, the Eternal bless you. Boaz said to the servant who was in charge of the reapers, whose girl is that? The servant in charge of the reapers replied, she is a Moabite girl who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab. She said, please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the reapers. She has been on her feet ever since she came this morning. She has rested but little in the hut.
Thank you. Okay, so Boaz is back and he's better than ever. He's here. He has a little greeting to his friends here. Oh, God be with you. Oh, and with you. How nice to see each other. And then Boaz immediately, after, no hi, no how you doing, past this little greeting. who's that girl over there? What do we got going on over here? So immediately he sort of notices her. That's the Moabite girl from Moab. Really putting a little extra salt, on the fact that she's from Moab, right? Like letting you know who she is, where she's from. And she said, "Hey, can I work here? Can I get a job? Got to make a living here." And she's been on her feet ever since. Not only did she work, she's a great worker. She reaps that grain, from morning until night. She's rested very little. Hard-working Moabite girl. It's nice. Should have given her some compliments about her work ethic. That's sweet. And so now Boaz is not going to waste much time. He's going to strike while the iron is hot, and he's going to go talk to Ruth and say shalom. Brahms.
Yes. Boaz?
Yeah.
Boaz said to Ruth, "Listen to me, daughter. Don't go to glean in another field. Don't go elsewhere, but stay here close to my girls. Keep your eyes on the field. They are reaping, and follow them. I have ordered the men not to molest you. And when you are thirsty, go to the jars and drink some of the water that the men have drawn."
Okay. And so Boaz goes up to her. Stay with me in my field. Hang out here. Stay close. Keep your eye on your work. Keep your eye on the fields. Do what they do. And you know what? I told the guys, maybe don't bother you. Sort of the least he can do, but sure. I've told the other guys not to bug you. And when you're thirsty, have a bissel, have a little drink of water that the men have drawn. Don't pass out on your feet here. If you're thirsty, have a drink. Now, is this flowers and a box of chocolates? Not exactly, but it's nice. It's something, that we have here. He isn't exactly pulling out all the stops, but a little nice thing. Okay, it's a small step and a good step. Okay, and then Ruth replies.
Keep going.
She prostrated herself with her face to the ground and said to him, "Why are you so kind as to single me out when I am a foreigner?" Boaz said in reply, "I have been told of all that you did for your mother-in-law after the death of your husband, how you left your father and mother and the land of your birth and came to a people you had not known before. May the Eternal reward your deeds. May you have a full recompense from the Eternal, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have sought refuge." She answered, "You are most kind, my Lord, to comfort me and to speak gently to your maidservant, though I am not so much as one of your maidservants."
Oh, thank you for that. So again, they got a little chit chat to get some details here. She, gives him a little curtsy, a little bow, is the whole thing. And says, "Oh, you're being so nice to me. Like, why are you being so nice to me?" And Boaz says, "Well, this is why." And Boaz, perhaps in an off-camera sort of moment, he gets filled in on all the information. He has all the backstory about how loyal she is, how committed she is. So Boaz right away knows, hey, she's a hard worker, she's loyal, she's loving, she shows kindness to her mother-in-law, and because of these things, again, he doesn't say it in as many words, but he's repaying that kindness. He wants God to as well, but he is showing her, hey, what goes around, like you're putting all this good into the world, I'm going to be good to you as well. So I'm going to show you perhaps more kindness than is warranted in this moment. I'm going to really make sure that you're doing well as much as I can. And she's very appreciative. You are most kind, even though, because she recognizes that he doesn't have to do it. Right, he doesn't have to be as kind and generous with her, but he is, and that is, of course, very nice. Okay, so now the courting begins. Mealtime, time for the lunch. Melissa, you want to read here?
At mealtime, Boaz said to her, "Come over here and partake of the meal, and dip your morsel in the vinegar." So she sat down beside the reapers. He handed her roasted grain, and she ate her fill and had some left over.
Okay, not bad. A little snack. You know, you can have a little lunch. Doesn't really sound that delicious, but fine. You know, it's a little barley and vinegar. Again, not exactly a fish taco, but it's okay. It's something. So they eat, they enjoy, and they're eating together at the cafeteria, right? They're eating together at the commissary. They're sitting down. I can picture their little trays next to each other, and they're making small talk over the vinegar. So you know, it's something. It's nice. Okay, and keep going, Melissa. When she got up.
When she got up again to glean, Boaz gave orders to his workers. "You are not only to let her glean among the sheaves without interference, but you must also pull some stalks out of the heaps and leave them for her to glean, and not scold her." She gleaned in the field until evening. Then she beat out what she had gleaned. It was about an ephah of barley, and carried it back with her to the town.
Hey, so Boaz is being very generous, okay? So not only do you, and again, he's doing this a little bit surreptitiously, but he's giving her more, you know, than her fair share, so to speak. He's giving her some tzedakah as well, allowing her to glean even more, making sure that she has some stuff that she can bring home. And so she's gleaning and gleaning and gleaning. She works really hard. And then, yeah, she has a lot of barley that she's going to take home with her, you know, as her work for the day. She's going to have some barley to bring home.
Rabbi, wasn't he, he had to allow her to glean. He wasn't really giving her anything except the extra barley he did. But the gleaning wasn't that left the corners of the fields for the poor, the hungry?
Yeah, and so it's unclear whether she's only working on the corners. You know, yeah. So if she was destitute, yes, like she would get to work on the corners of the fields. And that's what in Leviticus. It's exactly right. That's a great point. That in Leviticus it tells us, you know, that you're supposed to leave some portion of your field for the destitute. You know, it's unclear. I think to me whether or not that's what's happening here. It could be. You could easily be right, you know, on that, because that way, you know, here she's going to get more to do and not get yelled at, you know. So she's going to be able to glean a little extra. So the first part, you know, is maybe her portion, and the second part is a little bit extra. So I think you have it right, you know, on that, is that she is keeping sort of the tzedakah portion, but also getting a little bit extra. So I think you got that right. And so she gets some extra stuff to take home. Barley for everybody. A little mushroom barley soup, perhaps. Good for a cold day, but that's not in Florida. Okay. Linda White, you want to pick up Linda?
Sure. Where are we?
When her mother-in-law.
When her mother-in-law saw that she had gleaned, and when she also took out and gave her what she had left over after eating her fill, her mother-in-law asked her, "Where did you glean today? Where did you work? Blessed be he who took such generous notice of you." So she told her mother-in-law whom she had worked with, saying, "The name of the man with whom I work today is Boaz."
So perhaps it's my little cynical side coming out on this one. I sort of picture Naomi at home watching the soaps. I really sort of picture her just sort of hanging around the house. Naomi's busted. I mean, Ruth is busting her hump out there for, you know, God knows how many hours, you know, gleaning the barley sheaves. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Naomi's actually, you know, doing some other sort of work in the house. But you know, Ruth comes home. "Hey, look at all the barley I got. You know, isn't this great? We have barley." And so Naomi's sort of inquisitive, you know, curious, like, where did you get all this stuff? You know, because she knows that it's a nice day to have all this barley. And it's Boaz, you know. Oh, it's Boaz. Linda, you want to finish up this part over here? Naomi said to her daughter-in-law.
Sure. Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, "Blessed be he of the Eternal, who has not failed in his kindness to the living or to the dead." For Naomi explained to her daughter-in-law, "The man is related to us. He is one of our redeeming kinsmen." Ruth the Moabite said, "He even told me, 'Stay close by my workers until all my harvest is finished.'"
Okay, and so, hey, good times again. Boaz is a redeeming kinsman. Quick refresher, what is a redeeming kinsman? And so according to the Torah, if a brother, if somebody passes away and has a brother, the brother is to marry the widow. It's levirate marriage is the term for it. That way the line can continue. So, so in the case where there's no brother, another male relative can step in and be a help, so to speak, be that redeeming kinsman. And wouldn't you know it, gosh golly gee, Boaz is a redeeming kinsman. Hooray, huzzah. Once again, a little foreshadowing of the rest of the story. And so they're meet cute in the barley field as they're flirting over morsels with vinegar, is perhaps the beginning of a blossoming of a relationship, one that was perhaps preordained by God, putting us into the arms of our beloved. Isn't that so nice? A little bit of chesed, a little bit of grace from God to help us in our search for the one we are meant to be with. Sandy, you want to pick up here? And Naomi answered. You got to unmute.
There we go.
Yeah.
And Naomi answered her daughter-in-law, Ruth, "It is best, daughter, that you go out with his girls and not be annoyed in some other field." So she stayed close to the maidservants of Boaz and gleaned until the barley harvest and the wheat harvest were finished. Then she stayed at home with her mother-in-law.
Sorry. I left you hanging. on that last word. Mother-in-law. It really is it's interesting to sort of show that they are finding their way, right? So that they're trying to figure out what they're doing. And perhaps Naomi's formulating a plan by now. I'm not sure. But she's certainly thinking about what this all means and putting together the pieces and saying, hey, Boaz seems like a nice guy. Gave you a little extra, told you to stick around, didn't shoo you away to some other field, and even offered you a little bit of protection, and said, hey, stay here with me during this time, and I'll make sure you're okay, which is, again, above and beyond what he needs to do. It's a nice thing that he's doing by really offering her that shelter of peace, so to speak, that he's going to be able to or he's going to do his best to ensure that she is safe and she is able to work and able to glean and able to bring home, well, not bringing home the bacon, but bringing home the barley, is more fitting in this context. Bring home that barley. Okay, that's our halfway point from Ruth. Any questions we have?
What do you think is the age difference between Boaz and Ruth and the maidservants?
Boaz is definitely older. That's going to come to light in the third and fourth chapters. Boaz is what I would say significantly older. We don't know what, but we can certainly guess that he is significantly older than she is.
Rabbi,
yeah,
I have a question
Sure.
on the term chesed. When Ruth leaves Moab and goes with her mother-in-law, doesn't she, everybody knows that the Moabites are not good people, and she's with her mother-in-law because she's kind, so she expects where she's going is going to be a kinder place. Does anybody ever say it that way? And kindness doesn't always have to do with your surroundings. If things are bad, kindness can be how you were treated by the people you were with despite what is around you.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that second point. To be sure, and I think the idea is that since Ruth is a Moabite, that she can go home to Moab and to be accepted and maybe even have it easier in a way. Because if she's a Moabite going to an Israelite settlement, there might be a tougher time. There might be a little bit of societal backlash and having this Moabite woman be hanging around the Israelite encampments, whereas she can go home to Moab, and be fine, there and not have that concern that it actually it transcends. I think the beauty of the passage is that it's supposed to transcend those nationalistic ideas, which is beautiful in a way, right? It's basically saying that Ruth feels more comfortable almost being with Naomi and the Israelites. She's going to roll the dice there than rather being with her quote unquote own people. We choose our family sometimes, right? I think that's what we're talking about here, is that she's able to choose her family. She's able to choose the people that she wants to be with, whether they're Israelite, Moabite, Ammonite, whatever, it's stalagmite, whatever they're going to be, right? It's going to be different. And she's saying, no, my nationality shouldn't matter. Yours doesn't matter to me. In fact, I'll embrace your nationality. Let me stay with you. Let me be part of your community. You are the family that I choose.
Is that what's happening with us now in our country?
For some of us.
For some of us, yeah.
For some of us, I think certainly true, without a doubt. And so I think that's powerful, and so that's a really nice message. It's actually what I haven't thought about as much until this conversation, Gary. So I appreciate you helping bring that out. Yeah. Is that idea that she really does make that choice. Again, when it could have been easier for many different reasons, but for the cultural, societal reason, to perhaps just go back to her birthplace. But she's making her own home. She's creating her own family. And that's a really sweet idea. Indeed, I think it's really good.
Oh, Rabbi, can I pass on a quick little paragraph I saw on the internet? I think this is important with trivia night this week.
Yeah.
When Oprah was born, her Aunt Ida named her Orpha after a character in the Bible's Book of Ruth. In 2008, Winfrey explained her family, unfamiliar with the name, pronounced it and spelled it Oprah from her infancy, but it still remains Orpha on her birth certificate.
Oh, that's great.
Interesting.
That's very interesting.
The joys of
we'll know the answer to the question Saturday
night. Now let's see if we can get somebody to ask that question.
You all know the answer to my favorite Jewish trivia question? I've asked it before, so that's why I always wonder who remembers these little witty moments. Can you name 2 foods that are kosher, but they are from non-kosher animals?
Oh.
Venison?
Deer's kosher. You can have all the deer you want. It's 2 animal products, so to speak, that are kosher, but they come from non-kosher animals.
Kishka?
Milk?
Kishka is just gross,
Right.
Oh, yeah.
No, you have to be our age in order to enjoy that, right?
Yes, yum.
No, have to be your age, Renee.
That's true. That's true. That's true. But it can't be Rabbi's age. She's way too young.
No kishka.
So what's
no
the
derma.
answer? What's the answer, Rabbi?
The first one is honey. Honey is kosher, and bees are not kosher. That's the one that people sometimes get, because we have honey for Rosh Hashanah, honey for different things, but you can't eat a bee. Technically speaking, it's an insect. It's not kosher. The second one's more of a trick question. The second one's a little bit harder. The second one is breast milk. Breast milk is parv, but you can't eat a person. That's called cannibalism, and people are not kosher, so you cannot eat a person. So honey and breast milk, those are the 2. There might be others, but that's one of my favorite Jewish trivia questions.
Maybe they'll ask that Saturday night too.
Yeah. See, now you know the answer if I wind up somehow being able to ask it on Saturday night.
Right.
Now you the
right.
joy of coming to Bible studies. You find these little
There you go. There
little
you
facts.
go.
Actually, I'm hoping this comes together, but as a little extra incentive, on Friday night for Shabbat, the Cantor and I are sort of working on having a trivia theme for the evening. And so we might find some ways to incorporate some Jewish trivia into the service. We're working on it. Now that I said it, I have to do it. That
That'll be
helps.
fun.
But we're thinking about playing with it, asking some questions about, in a lighthearted way, but questions about some of the prayers and other parts of Jewish life. So
Interesting.
an extra little incentive, a little bonus for Shabbat.
Oh, man.
Well, you're all my bonus for the week. I love being able to come and study and have some Torah together. So I always appreciate our time. So
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Yes,
All right.
thank
Good
you.
class.
Yes, thank you.
Good
We'll
night.
see you sooner than later, okay?
Okay.
Everyone stay
Bye.
healthy,
Night,
stay
everyone.
safe.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.